Hey guys, Alex from 7th Hour Films back again with My Hero Academia. Last time on My Hero Academia, we had the Hellish Todoroki Family Part 2. It's not really, it's not as bad as hell. It's hell-ish. Which, I must say, using the word hellish twice in the span of 3 episode titles, good job. But this was also a reused title from last season anyway, Hellish Todoroki Family. Which, despite that, it was mainly about Hawks, so, yeah. It was mainly about Hawks. We got Hawks' origin with his terrible parents and how he eventually was bought by the government to become a super crazy spy hero guy. And then he went to his mother's house in the present day to realize that she had vamoosed. She had skedaddled after being threatened by Dabi. I still question, the whole thing of, Dabi went to Hawks' mom to get info about Hawks, and it's like, okay, I get that, so he knows, everything, about his dad and stuff. How did Dabi know to find her? Because Hawks' name is, completely off the record, isn't it? So, I mean, maybe it's not. I guess it could just still be on the record. He just never uses that name. But how did Dabi figure this out? The only thing I can think is he used Laptop Guy in order to find it, because Laptop Guy is pretty good. So, I guess it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, so Hawks is he must overcome his origin and also help Endeavor, because man, Endeavor's starting to get canceled, basically. And then, Endeavor woke up in the hospital, and he was crying. He was actually crying because of his failures with Toya. And then the family came in, and even Ray, his wife, came in, and they were like, "All right, we got to talk about Toya." So yeah. It's interesting stuff, depressing as it is. It's the interesting depressing. That's what we're looking for here today. And so hopefully we get to continue that a little bit. But we'll have to see. Anyway. We might as well jump right into this episode. Like always, the reaction is down in the description and in the pinned comment for your viewing pleasure. So let's go ahead and jump right into this episode of My Hero Academia. Here we go. Okay. Quick thing to mention before we move on. Hang on. This is not the same day as when I started this video. This is actually the next day. There was a cut in the middle of the episode, and you may have noticed, probably not, because I always wear a black shirt when I film, so you probably didn't notice that I changed shirts, but yeah. It is the next day, because in the middle of this episode, specifically when it was just after Ray said that Shoto is the true hero of the family, my internet just died, just completely, because the previous day we had a big storm and some tornadoes and stuff, and the internet provider was working on getting internet back across the state, which meant rolling blackouts across the state as well. So I got affected, and it just was not coming back on. I really, really tried before I realized what was really happening. So I had to basically just abandon the episode in the middle. So, yeah, it's the next day, and this is weird. This is weird. I've never had to do this before, where I just finish watching something another day, But here I am. I went about 5 minutes or so, probably more actually. I went about 5 to 8 minutes before where I left off, just so I could, make sure I had everything fresh in my mind. I think I'm good, so we should all be good, but yeah. That's basically what ended up happening, is I had to abandon the episode right in the middle, and now it's the next day, so here we are. Okay, let's talk about this episode, because there's stuff in my throat. Hang on. Let's talk about this episode. Damn, this episode's good. This is good, man. And I do kind of have hope at the end where it's like, oh, Hawks and Best Jeanist and Endeavor, they're going to start getting involved in, they're going to figure out what One for All is and stuff. And it's like, oh, yes, bring in the interesting characters and stuff, Because I realized probably the best term to describe my issue with All for One and Shigaraki and Midoriya and stuff, it's inherited angst. And inherited angst is kind of dumb. It's kind of dumb, which is why I like when Deku and Shigaraki move away from that, I guess it's sort of the Last Jedi thing of, let the past die, kill it if you must, That's my best Adam Driver impression, but I'm kind of with that of like, no, let's we move on, which is why I haven't enjoyed All for One being the villain again, but so that's kind of that. But, and I know that's kind of, it kind of sounds weird, inherited angst, when Shoto Todoroki is like the definition of inherited angst, but everything about his angst is still playing out in the present time, Like, everything about that with Endeavor and Toya, all of that, and his family, his mother, everything is still playing out right now. So, I give him more of a leeway. And God, it's just so interesting. Man, I have to applaud. I'm curious what the manga panels looked like. Like, this is, one thing where it's like, man, I kind of want to go see what this chapter looked like in the manga. Specifically, the art. Because, my God, the art was spectacular because it was terrifying. It was so scary. Because I feel like a lot of times they almost, hear me out, they almost skirt away from some of, Endeavor's abuse. Because what you mainly see is Endeavor now. And yeah, he used to be a dick. Now he's kind of getting better and better. But, but I say that knowing full well, yeah, we see Rei, driven to her breaking point. And we see the aftermath. We don't see her actually pouring the boiling water onto Shoto, So that's the thing. It's like, again, it's like, I don't want to say like, oh, they don't show it, because they show stuff, and you understand how bad it was, But even like, I mean, even today in this episode, like, they don't show like a hit connecting between Endeavor and Rei. And back in the day, they just didn't even show her on the floor. You just heard it happen off screen. All you saw was Shoto's reaction. And there is something to that is good in terms of, conveying the message without, getting too graphic or anything. But where they don't show any sort of a hit connect between Endeavor and Rei, what they do show is his face. And I think that was really good. And especially to now, because, Endeavor now, he's softer. He's not as angry. I mean, when he was fighting Shigaraki, he was pretty angry, but still. But he's not as angry as he used to be. He's not, he's not, like, probably one of the crazier faces that we see with Endeavor earlier is in the sports festival when Shoto starts using his fire and then he gets just this mad grin on his face, So yeah. So that's one thing. But yeah, here, now, so he's a lot softer, he's not angrier, and even though he has his scar, which, a lot of times a scar can be viewed as, this terrifying thing, but on Endeavor, it really isn't, especially with just where his character is now. So, taking us back before that, no beard, no scar, no nothing, is just back when he was younger, when he was it's just the man, it's just the man. Man, does he get fucking scary. And I appreciate that. And just with how much they went into drawing him at some of these points, it really makes me curious of what it looks like in the manga, because that feels like you know, it feels like that was a moment where the mangaka was like, okay, I gotta show you how fucking scary this shit was, you know? How terrible it was for the Todoroki family, and yeah, there you go. There you go, you got it. Dago, you got it. So yeah. So that's just one thing. That's just one thing just of the making of this episode is the art was good. And even just, you know, some of the faces he had talking to Toya was crazy. And now, Toya, alright, so I get it. Jeez. So Toya... So, they specifically said, while his firepower is stronger than Endeavor's, his body's not made for it. His body takes more after his mother, which I guess that's why his hair turned white, went from red to white over time. I guess it's still kind of weird because it's like, well, the white denotes the ice quirk, but I guess it's supposed to be that at first he was, you know, more or less okay. But as time goes on, his body cannot keep up with his quirk, thus it becomes more like his mother's hair. I guess. Despite the fact that with literally every other Todoroki, hair color is dependent on what quirk you have. You know, do you have the ice or do you have the fire? But for Toya, it's different. Okay, sure, that's fine. But yeah, so we had Toya... but the problem is he kept trying, and that's an interesting thing where Shoto, but I mean, it's a kind of a question like, it's a question you don't really want to ask because they were both terrible. They both had terrible childhoods, but who had it worse, Toya or Shoto? I don't even think that's a question you can ask, you know? I don't even think you can ask that question because it was both terrible. But the interesting thing is that for Toya, probably because he was the first child, for Toya, he wanted that dream. He idolized his father. And yeah, at the beginning, things were kind of easygoing, you know? Things were kind of easygoing. You know, did Endeavor, you know, actually love his wife? You could open that up for debate. You could probably write a whole video essay on that. And yeah, so you kind of have that. He's not really, you know, he's not abusing his wife. He's not abusing his son. There are no real problems here until Toya can't keep up with his own quirk. And eventually he realizes, Endeavor realizes, okay, I can't do this. I can't use him. And you could say that's maybe part of a conscious? I don't know, that it's like, well, he doesn't want to push his son to death, you know? If he's looking at his son and is like, you can't do this, he stops it. He puts a stop to it, you know? But at the same time, he says, you can't do this. Thus, you have failed what I wanted simply by how you were born. I have to make another. So they make Fuyumi. Fuyumi immediately more white, little specks of red here and there, but mostly white. Then Natsu. I think they actually showed Natsu had a bit of red hair at the beginning, just a bit, kind of like Fuyumi a bit, but we see him now, his hair is completely white. So both of them didn't work, didn't even try, they don't even have the fire, really. Until finally you get Shoto, and he's thinking, okay, this is it, you know? Because even if he doesn't have the strongest constitution, like Toya, he has the perfect blend, half cold, half hot. But Toya looks at this and realizes he's being replaced, and that drives him crazy. So you understand that, and it's a very interesting thing that it's like, yeah, it was drilled into his head from birth that he needs to be the next number one hero, that he needs to live up to Endeavor's dreams, and he just can't accept that he can't do that, you know? And it drives him crazy to where eventually he just destroys himself. Now, how he survived, I have no earthly idea. Now, yes, we see all of his burns. I mean, I don't know. So I guess the question is, well, no, that must, all this, burned skin on him can't be his own skin, can it? Can it? They did say that they recovered a fragment of a jawbone from the forest. That was pretty much, that's what they assumed was all that was left of Toya. And we do see that Dabi's jaw, it's different. So I'm assuming he got spares, basically, and that's why, that's all the stitching and everything. So, yeah. But how he really survived, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. What matters is he ended up becoming Dabi, Which I gotta say, when they talk about, when it cuts back to them and they're like, oh, we had no idea that Toya would turn into Dabi. And it's like, oh, you're gonna have to fight Dabi. And it's like, God, it makes me realize how dumb the name Dabi is. It's like, just say Toya, Just say Toya. It's not gonna, it doesn't work if you just say Dabi. But I get why he went with Dabi the whole time, but because he wasn't ready yet to reveal himself as Toya. But, and I will say, I feel like this is the thing that the author, the mangaka, had planned out for at least since season 2, maybe a little earlier, Probably even earlier, because, I mean, from the get-go, he pretty much, you had Shoto not using his left side, and they, you establish Endeavor. It's not like, again, I still think that Best Jeanist was just kind of a throwaway joke, and then he was like, oh, wait, what if I make this into a character? I mean, he's like, the number 4 hero or whatever? We could do this, But this, I feel like this was kind of planned out more, Maybe he didn't have everything down, but I mean, at the same time, pretty much from Dabi's introduction, I think he had a lot of this down, Maybe, I would say, probably not every last detail of the backstory that's shown in this episode. But I would imagine he had a good idea of what he wanted to do with Dabi and the Todoroki family from the beginning, pretty much. And I say this because I look at other things that have been revealed, and that does not sound like that was the plan from season 1. The first thing that comes to mind is Kurogiri. It's like, oh, Kurogiri was actually Aizawa and Present Mike's best friend from school who died, but now he's Kurogiri, and it's like, that was not the plan. No, you cannot convince me. He's like, oh, in season 1, he didn't recognize me at the USJ, probably because the author hadn't thought of it. No, you cannot convince me that was always the idea. Absolutely not. You cannot convince me that the friggin' suit-wearing, bartending, Shigaraki babysitting Phantom Head, the well-dressed man with a phantom head, as I used to call him, you cannot convince me that was planned from the beginning. Another thing I would say was not planned from the beginning was Midoriya getting other quirks, because if that was the case, it would have not have taken 100 episodes for him to get a new friggin' quirk, To where now, where I'm pretty sure we've got maybe 3 or 4 arcs after this. Someone said that we'll probably finish out at the end of season 7. That'll probably be the end of My Hero. You cannot convince me that only now is he getting more quirks. I mean, hell, he just got 2 in that last fight, one of which did nothing for him, the danger sense. It didn't do anything for him. The float, it did do something for him, but at the same time, I don't know, I guess I take it like Jotaro flying. It's like, you just stay up there, you'll fall back eventually, but I don't know. But whatever. So yeah, it's like, I don't think that was planned from the beginning. Him getting more quirks, Kurogiri being the best friend. But this feels like it was a big idea. This feels like it was a big idea from the beginning. Which honestly, when you think about... I mean, it's kind of a problem that, like, when they cut back to Shoto has not been a main character for a long time. It's like Ida, you know? Like, Shoto had story and stuff earlier, and there has been some stuff, but at the same time, it's been the Midoriya show for a while. And actually, for a little bit, it was the Shigaraki show, we'll be honest. So, when it cuts back, and it's like, oh, Shoto is the real hero of our family, and it's like, oh yeah, that good old piece of wood, Shoto Todoroki. It's like, I'm sorry. Shoto, I mean, it's a problem of, I don't think he's gotten enough screen time for this. Like, because when you're a sort of quieter type, you really need more moments, you know? Because Bakugo is not like that, and we know enough about Bakugo. Like, we got too much of Bakugo, probably. I mean, I know I want him more now, but, like, throughout the series, we probably had too much of Bakugo. Now I'm looking at this, and it's like, alright, Shoto, that's great. I don't know. Like, I feel like I have more character with Endeavor than I do with Shoto. Like, I'm here for this story because of what and how Endeavor is going to deal with Toya, not how Shoto is going to deal with Toya. And honestly, it kind of makes me think Shoto probably should have been the main character. Now that I think about it. Now, yes, would that be very difficult, you know, with One for All and stuff? Yeah, you'd basically have to abandon all of that and just have a guy with fire and ice powers and never bring in One for All or anything like that. But honestly, and especially too, because, I mean, let's face it, Toya is very similar to Shigaraki down to the fact that they now both have white hair. Honestly, if you had cut Midoriya, One for All, and Shigaraki, maybe All for One. You could probably keep All for One and All Might, honestly, because All Might is also the catalyst of Endeavor's whole story, basically. But if you had kept this about the Todoroki family, it probably could have worked for a whole series, you know? Now, you'd have to do a bit with Shoto's character, but honestly, I could see that being the case. I could see that being the true story here. I mean, that's not to, like, discredit, like, oh, what we've had up to now is terrible. No, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and you've seen it in my reactions. I've thoroughly enjoyed most of the story we've had, you know, some of the recent stuff notwithstanding, but yeah, so it's like, so I'm not saying that, but it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of, like, what's a comparison. Which, man, my camera just restarted, because it does that every 33 minutes. It restarts. It basically starts a new video file. I was not expecting to talk this long after this episode, so yeah. I don't know. I think probably the reason I say that is that I'm just enjoying Todoroki's story more now than I'm enjoying Midoriya's story, so oh well. Anyway, Hawks and Best Jeanist are here. That's great. I love that. I love them coming in being like, "Yo, let's solve your problems. Let's work on your problems and let's go kick some villain butt. You know, let's go." But yeah, how did the reporter hear about One for All? Because Endeavor did say that. Was it in the report? It couldn't have been in the report. I don't know. How did that happen? How did that reporter... Maybe they said it and I just kind of missed it, but yeah. But they do... I mean, they don't know what One for All is, but they know of it. Hawks, Best Jeanist, Endeavor, the whole Todoroki family has heard of it now. And Endeavor at least knows that it's something to do with Deku. And yeah, Hawks is now kind of putting things together. It's like, okay, this is something to do with Deku, and All Might is involved in this, you know? All Might is involved in this. And then, cut back to All Might, who thank God gets a line for once, but All Might, that's an interesting thing, that the vestige of All Might that is within One for All is communicating with Midoriya. So right now, the vestiges are all talking. Like, it's a freaking roundtable discussion of something. I don't know. I kind of found that interesting because they say it's like, oh, you're communicating with the vestiges. It's like, are you going to show that? It's like, I guess it's next episode. But normally, like, they would end on... I feel like they would end on, like, a cliffhanger of Midoriya, like, he opens his eyes and he sees, you know, all 8 of them, and he's like, oh... So, I don't know. But it'll probably be next episode. I don't know. But yeah. So, that is my my discussion for this episode that took me over 24 hours to do. Oh my god. I can't believe that. And, man, I can't believe how long I talked, too. I can't believe how long I talked. But yeah, but this was really good, honestly. I really, really enjoyed this. So, I'm willing, if the next episode is going to be talking to the vestiges, alright, get me invested in you guys again, you know? Like, look, I like the one guy with Black Whip. He was kind of cool. I like Shimura because she's fucking muscly and hot and you know? I don't really care about the rest of them, but, you know, get me interested. Get me interested in this plot line. I'd be way more interested if there weren't 2 All For Ones. If All For One would just go away and we just had Shigaraki, I'd be way more into this, you know? But, whatever. The important thing is, we had 2 really good episodes, I think. So, yeah. So that is basically it. With all that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of my My Hero Academia reactions, as well as another video you can go click on if you want. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.